Okay, we're going to get started here. If folks can grab a seat, we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, we're going to get started here in just a moment, so folks can grab a seat, please. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning, ladies.
All right. Welcome. Good morning. Okay, we're going to get started. So sure appreciate everyone coming out on this cold, blustery winter morning. I just had knee surgery, so I apologize. I'm not going to be standing the whole time, but certainly respect and welcome all of you folks that come up and speak today to the microphones that we have. So I'd like to call this deliberative session meeting to order at 9:04. Some couple safety points. There is no smoking anywhere in this building. Please take a moment to notice the exits in the building in the event of an emergency. There's one behind you folks, and there's two here, and one behind over there. So let's go ahead and get started with our opening. In recognition of the labor and sacrifice of those who created, defended, and refined the privilege of a democratic government under which we assemble this morning, can we all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? And as we conclude our pledge, please remain standing for a brief meditation passed down in Deerfield history from Joe Brown. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. I suggest that we open this meeting by standing in silent meditation, asking guidance in our conduct of this Deerfield Town meeting that may prove an effective self-government for us all. Guide us in our voting by a sense of purpose and human understanding. In our hands today lie the business affairs of the town for our future. Grant us the sense of fairness to allow all citizens to participate regardless of experience. Help us to express ourselves with restraint and dignity that we may work together harmoniously for the well-being of our town in the coming year. So let it be. Please be seated. Welcome to the first session of the 2022 Deerfield Town Meeting. My name is Dan Holdridge, your town moderator. This deliberative session of the 2022 Deerfield Town Meeting acts as a legislative body for determining the final form of warrant articles to be voted on March 8th ballot. We appreciate everyone's understanding during this pandemic to provide a safe business meeting setting for all. We do have separate seating areas for those who wish to remain unmasked and for those wearing masks. We want everyone to feel welcome, and everyone in attendance will have the same opportunity to speak and respectfully be heard. I'm going to lower my mask just a little bit when I talk so that you can hear what I'm saying. As your town moderator, I appreciate your willingness to support our efforts to bring about a fair and smooth running business meeting. I appreciate your understanding for my efforts to get clarity and productivity throughout our session. A Deerfield voter card was issued to you when you went through the voter checklist. I will use the cards for voting, so please don't lose your card as we cannot issue you another one. Please turn your cell phones off or into vibrate mode. If you need to make a call, please go outside as to not interrupt the meeting. The exception would be the fire and police personnel who are on call. I'd like to begin with introductions of our town officials, and then we'll go over some housekeeping items to ensure a smooth and orderly meeting, and we abide by the laws of the state of New Hampshire. With us today, our town's council, Attorney Nathan Middlewell. We have our selectmen, Dick Pittman, Dwight Barnes, Alden Dill, Cindy McHugh, and Fred McGarry. Municipal Budget Committee Chairperson, William Von Hassel. Is he here today? I don't see it. Okay. We have assistant town moderators here today, Eric Rose, and we have Fran Menard over here. Appreciate all your support. Our town clerk, amazing town clerk, Kelly Roberts. Not here today is our deputy town clerk, Kim Crotty, our town administrator, John Harrington. And certainly want to thank John for all of his tremendous support getting together today, all together, this meeting hall set up, all the arrangements for this today. So if you just join me in a quick round of applause for John Harrington. Okay, our finance director, not able to be here today, is Rita Donaldson. Bookkeeper on the floor, Peter LeMay, also not here. Our supervisor of the checklist, those wonderful people that you see as you're checking in. We have Joanna Waring, Christina Pretorius, and Maureen Quinn. So be sure to thank them on your way out for their wonderful work they do. Our inspectors of election, Phil and Joan Bilodeau, is here today. And we have our police chief, Gary Duquette, he's in the back. Our fire chief, Matt Fisher, is over there. Appreciate them here. I also want to extend a sincere thanks to our Deerfield Fair Association for allowing us to use this wonderful facility, doing all the preparations outside to make it safe for all of us to come here today. So thank you to the Deerfield Fair. And so we'll now move on to our purpose rules and quorum of today's session. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is the SB2 deliberative session for the 2022 Deerfield Town Meeting as defined in New Hampshire RSA 652:16-F. You will act as a legislative body to determine the final form of the warrant articles that will be voted on at this election at it's going to be on March 8th, right here. All of the articles by law must be placed on the ballot. Each member who wishes to vote in this meeting should have checked in with the supervisors of the checklist and should have received a voting card and a sheet of yes/no ballots. If you are a registered voter and have not checked in, please do so now. Are there any individuals present who are not registered voters of the town of Deerfield? And present. Though you are not permitted to vote, by Deerfield tradition, you are permitted to participate in the debate. Without objection, we will continue this tradition today. The rules for this meeting are as follows and are updated as of 2022. Our meeting today is for the transaction of all business other than voting by official ballot. The first session shall consist of explanation, discussion, and debate of each warrant article. Since Deerfield operates via Senate Bill Number 2 town meeting, all warrant articles, amended or not amended, will automatically be placed on the ballot. There are no need for motions to place articles on the ballots unless they are amended. Please note, all zoning articles are not open to amendment per New Hampshire RSA 675.3, and we don't have any zoning articles today. Our business today is to consider each warrant article and, within the limits of law, determine the details of those articles to be voted on by the official ballot at the March 8th second session. Amendments to articles are in order and will be voted on at this meeting. However, at the conclusion of our deliberation on each article, we will not vote on passage of the warrant article. Instead, the chair will instruct the town clerk to place the article on the official ballot. In the event you want to make a motion for an amendment, please be sure to write down the amendment information on the slips provided. They're over by the supervisor of the checklist, so feel free to grab one if you would like. And once acknowledged by the chair, read your suggested amendment into the microphone. Then kindly bring the written amendment information to our town clerk, Ms. Kelly Roberts, for the recording of the minutes. Our goal is for our legislative body here this morning to be efficiently on the same page with all the information as discussed. The chair will read each article, then recognize a representative of the warrant article author to speak, then the floor will be open to all. If you wish to address the meeting, please approach the microphone. The chair will recognize members at the microphones in turn, so there's a microphone there, and there's one in the back over there. When it is your turn to speak, please step up to the microphone and speak directly into it. The microphone is voice activated and your remarks are recorded so that the clerk may make an accurate record of the meeting. All remarks must be confined to the merits of the pending question or to questions of order or privilege, and all remarks must be addressed to the chair. When recognized, please state your name and address to begin addressing the chair. Each speaker, if not the author of the warrant article who is presenting the article's information, will be allowed 3 minutes to express his or her views. You may speak as many times as you wish, but all members who wish to speak will have a first turn before any has a second turn. The overriding principle in all cases is fairness. A speaker may address the current pending question, or they may move to close debate, but may not do so in the same term. This means that if a speaker argues for or against a motion, he or she may not then conclude with their remarks, and I move the previous question. We adopted this rule many years ago, and with the support of the Assembly, will follow it in this meeting. A secret ballot per RSA 40:4A must be conducted when requested by 5 members in writing prior to a hand vote. Such request must be for a specific vote, not for all votes in this meeting or all amendments in this article. The 5 members must be present and stand when called to verify they are in attendance. The secret ballot provision exists to offer secrecy and is not intended to be used as a tactic of delay. If you wish to request a secret ballot, please approach the microphone when recognized and make the request, then pass the written request to the moderator. Secret ballot forms are available on the table by the supervisor of the checklist. Otherwise, votes will be taken by a show of voting cards. So if the chair cannot judge a clear majority, he will move to a division. Likewise, if a member is not satisfied that the result announced by the chair is correct, they should request a division. Division will be a count of the raised hands. 7 members who question any non-ballot vote immediately after it's announced may request a written ballot vote. If the margin of a vote by division is narrow, the moderator may also move to a ballot vote. 5 voters may request a written ballot vote, provided that the vote margin is not more than 10% of the total votes cast. In this case, the recount shall take place immediately following the public announcement of that vote per RSA 40:4-A. If there is something you would like to accomplish here, but you are uncertain how to proceed, please ask. You can do that at any time during the meeting at the microphone, or you can approach any of us during a recess. Similarly, if during the meeting something is not clear to you, please rise to a point of inquiry using the microphone and addressing the chair, then ask for an explanation. As a legislature, you will be discussing the warrant articles before us. Those discussions will be respectful of everyone's opinion. We do not cheer nor applaud when someone says something you agree with, and we do not boo nor groan when we disagree with what is said. Please be respectful of all comments and opinions as you would want yours to be respected. To keep personalities out of debate, please use the terms such as the previous speaker, the selectman, or the budget committee member. All questions or comments are to be directed to the moderator. There is no requirement that anyone must yield to answer a question posed to them. Finally, the role of the moderator is to fairly organize and regulate the meeting according to the rules agreeable by the legislative body in attendance. Rulings of the moderator are subject to appeal by any member. An appeal must be made immediately following the ruling. A second is required. The ruling and appeal will be explained to the legislative body, then the members will vote to either sustain or to reverse the ruling. We may take a break after lengthy articles. However, our goal is to conduct business efficiently for the respect of your valuable time here today. Also, this meeting is being recorded for viewing at a later date to be posted on the town website. Thank you for being a part of today's deliberative session and participating to help Deerfield become a bright future for generations to come. We hope to see you all again for February 12th at school deliberative session next Saturday to be held in the school gymnasium starting at 9 a.m. Also, please join us from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on March 8th for the town election to be held here in the Arts and Crafts Building. That concludes the rules. We'll now move on to warrant article number 1.
Mr. Moderator, would you article number 1?
Okay, thank you. So for the first session, to the inhabitants of the town of Deerfield and the county of Rockingham and in said state qualified to vote in town affairs, you are hereby notified to meet at the Arts and Crafts Building on the Deerfield Fairgrounds, 34 Stage Road, on Saturday, the 5th day of February 2022 at 9 a.m. This session shall consist of explanation, discussion, and deliberation of the warrant articles numbered 1 through 18. The warrant articles may be amended subject to the following limitations. The warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended, and B, warrant articles that are amended shall be placed on the official ballot for a final vote on the main motion as amended. The second session, the final vote for the warrant articles will take place at the Arts and Crafts Building on the Deerfield Fairgrounds, 34 Stage Road, Tuesday, March 8, 2022. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Number 1, to choose all necessary town officers for the year ensuing. And number 2, to vote on following warrant articles as amended, including the proposed budget as a result of the action of the first session. Article number 1. Shall the town of Deerfield raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session, the purposes set forth therein totaling $4,664,277. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $4,122,731, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by the previous action of the town of Deerfield or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13X and XVI to take up the issue of the revised operating budget only. This was recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500, recommended by Municipal Budget Committee, 740. Estimated tax impact proposed budget, $5.97. Estimated tax impact default budget, $5.28. With that in mind, I'd now like to call up our Board of Selectmen member Alden Dill to introduce this article.
Moderator, I'd like to move question item so, you need a motion to open?
Yeah.
Okay. Article 1 is the town operating budget. The Board of Selectmen started working on this back in August. The Municipal Budget Committee started working on this article back in October. We've been under a default budget for the last 7 years, so some of these numbers, the percent change, seem much higher than the increase actually is. Oops, sorry. Is that better? Okay. A lot of that is trying to catch up with current prices because we've been under default budget for so long. So with that, questions?
Okay, so thank you, Selectman Dill. We're now open the floor for any amendments or discussions. In the back?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Verba on McCarran Road, also a member of the Budget Committee. So this budget represents about a 15% increase on year-on-year budget. And there's some big buckets that make up that 15% increase. There's almost a 35% increase in the highway budget, and the increases in the highway budget make up about 30% of the 15% increase in the budget. Interestingly, salary adjustments for full-time, part-time employees, as well as benefits, makes up almost 40% of the proposed increase in the budget. So that amount, the salary adjustments and associated benefits, account for almost $250,000 in spending increase year on year. Interestingly enough, just further down on the warrant, Article 6 is a standalone article for yet more salary adjustments for all town employees, totaling another $77,000. The alderman, reminded us, the selectmen, forgot where I was. The selectmen reminded us that we've been, as a community, we've been under a default budget for many years. And it's my opinion that the reason the voters continue to select the default budget is because we're proposing budgets with double-digit % increases year on year. Well, until recently, the inflation rate has remained very low at around 2%. And with inflation now running rampant, this type of spending increase is ill-advised for families that are struggling in Deerfield. And it's my opinion that this budget will also get rejected. I was one of the minority votes that does not recommend this budget, and I do not encourage my fellow citizens to support this budget on the ballot in May. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Are there any additional folks that would like to speak regarding the budget? Okay. Looks like, yes, please.
I'm Joanne Bradbury. I'm a resident citizen of Deerfield. I urge everyone here to vote in favor of this budget. As Mr. Dill informed us, we are years behind in keeping the budget up to what it should be to run the town. It is, as it is, it's still a bare bones budget. And I also am on the budget committee and was one of the votes in favor of this budget. And I urge everyone not only that, but to get your email cranked up and let your friends and neighbors know that we need this budget and to please vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other folks that would like to speak? Yes. Somebody in the back?
Andrea Hoteling, Lakeview Lane. I also have been a member of the Budget Committee and been in the situation where we end up with default budgets, which I don't think is a good situation. However, I think it's very difficult to for people to understand what's in this budget because, you know, you get this document this morning and it's got pages and pages of detail. And I would like somebody on the Budget Committee to address 3 line items that seem sort of exorbitant, if I can find them, line numbers. One has to do with the difference in, I'll give you a page number in a second here. On page 11, in the fire department part-time employee, I know we have had a warrant article where we increased that in previous years, but it's down in section 4, it's line 01, 4220041111, and it went from year to date this year, actual expenses of $118,000, and the budget for next year is set at $174,000 and something. I don't know, have we not filled positions? I mean, you know, the budget last year was higher than that. I don't know why we're going to $174,000. So that's, would you like one at a time?
No, go ahead with your,
I have 3. In the aforementioned highway department, I'm trying to go here. Even when it's big. Okay. If we could find Parks and Recreation, there's another one I'd like to talk about. Sorry about this, folks. Okay, in Parks and Rec, which is on page 18, line item 0, it's way down at the bottom, it's 01452001.110. Recreation Department full-time employees going from current year actual of $59,000 up to a budget of $97,198. And that one, I believe, in listening to one of the Budget Committee online videos, the reason it's going up so much is that we used to have 2 full-time employees, but half of the second person was covered by what we call the Revolving Fund. In other words, the fund that manages all the individual programs that children and adults participate in and pay for. I would like to understand the rationale about why that isn't continuing to be paid 50% by the Revolving Fund. I think I'll stop with those 2 for the moment while I be a little better organized, maybe if I have another one.
Okay, thank you. So, would our fire chief, Matt Fisher, would you be able to speak to the question number one, please?
Morning.
Good morning.
So if you look at page 11, section 401.4220.04.111, fire rescue part-time employee line, look at the second column, 2020 actual spent was $116,000. The budget at the time was $117,000. So at the end of 2020, we had 60 hours a week budgeted. When we moved into 2021, there was a warrant article to add another 30 hours of part-time help to the budget. Because of last year's offset, right, that money wasn't approved until June of last year. That warrant article was for the whole year, which offsets why 6 months of that wasn't spent. The other part was last year there was a pay scale approved by the Board of Selectmen. That pay scale is in this year's proposed budget. So between half the year's money not being spent last year and the increase with the pay scale would be why the proposed budget is up. Or certainly gives the illusion of such a dramatic increase in the proposed over what was spent.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Parks and Rec.
Yeah, I can speak to Parks and Rec. Two things happened last year. We did lose the second employee for a period, so that's why we're down on what we spent. We do have a second employee again. The reason that the town budget is paying for more of the employee than before, the revolving fund comes out of program fees. The largest program fee we have is after school. So those families are basically subsidizing that entire thing. And it's not fair for a town-wide position who is doing multiple programs for that one program to be subsidizing the entire employee benefit package. Hope that answers the question. I'd also like to point out the budget has been available online right through, and we had a public hearing the other day on it.
Okay. Would you like to speak, sir? Go ahead.
Good morning, Brian Adams, citizen of Deerfield, originally from Candia. As a town, we can't keep operating on a default budget. Clearly, the price of things goes up. If you want a town that attracts people, people who are interested in living here and being part of the community, you have to show that you're willing to financially support the town as well. And this information, I just started reading it now, but the select board and other volunteers of the town have been spending their hard-earned time developing this and voting on it, and not based on opinion, but, months and years of gathering facts. And so, this is not really about opinion, this is about fact. The fact is that we need to not operate on a default budget. We need to respect the votes of the select board and others who are voting on these warrant articles. And so, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other final speakers? Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Verbo, McCarran Road. I beg your indulgence. I had actually forgot something that for me is of critical importance. And if we go back to page 11 of the 2022 budget worksheet, which is fire and rescue, and we look at the first line in that section, which is full-time employee, we notice that in the 2022 budget, that line for the first time is populated with $1. And what that dollar does is that opens that line for spending. And remember that when we pass the budget at the voting day in March, it's a bottom line budget that we approve. So the selectmen can move money from line to line to line. If this budget passes as proposed, it will allow the select board by majority vote, 3 people, to hire a full-time firefighter for New Hampshire. So we could go from a essentially volunteer fire department to a paid fire department with a vote of 3 individuals on the select board if this budget passes. And that is one really big reason that I would encourage people to vote against this budget. I would make the motion to remove the dollar if I thought I had the votes in the room to accomplish it, but I'm confident that I do not, so I won't. But I do have a question. We've heard a lot of people mention that the years of Deerfield operating under a default budget has really set us back and has really hurt us as a community. And I, for one, don't agree with that, and I don't believe that. And I would ask that somebody please present us with a list of all of the things that we should have done, that we didn't do, things we didn't get done that we need to have done, and what those dollar amounts are. If someone can sort of quantify for us the harm that's been caused to the community from us operating under a default budget for such a long time. Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Thank you.
All right, first of all, to address the previous speaker's 2 comments, the fire department full-time employee line, you'll notice the select board line is 0, and the MPC line is $1. So therefore, it was an addition during the budget committee process. Secondly, on the default budget, as we all know, it's a bottom line budget. We can move money where we need to move money, correct? Where do we pull money from when we need to move money because it's been 7 years? And the fire department needs salary increases and the police department needs salary increases. The biggest place to move money is road maintenance. So I would say if you're looking for how default budgets have cost us in the last 7 years, look at your roads. That's where we're having to steal money from to make the rest of the budget work. I think that's very easily quantitative. Is when we're bouncing over potholes, that's a default budget. The second warrant article that we have does address that to some extent, but doesn't come close to catching us up. We had a road study, and basically, to bring all our roads up to spec, it was what, $11 million? Yeah, we're behind. And that's the easiest, simplest way to describe it. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other comments on warrant article number 1?
Yeah. I am in support of this warrant article to pass this budget. I joined the select board a couple of months ago, and one of the things that immediately jumped out to me when I was looking at the expenditure reports were how many lines were overspent by a considerable amount of money. And I just couldn't understand what that was all about. I thought there was some bad management here, but as it turns out, the numbers that we're trying to accomplish are 7-year-old numbers. I mean, it's ridiculous to try to budget that way. It makes no sense at all. We need to pass this budget, and we need to catch ourselves up and be able to look at numbers with some realistic thoughts when we look at them. It's kind of crazy, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments regarding the budget? Seeing none, we'll ask the town clerk to place the article on the official ballot and move on to warrant article number 2. Okay, so article number 2 reads, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $250,000 for the purpose of repair and or reconstruction of existing roads and associated drainage improvements? Shall the town further authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept any and all state aid or other revenue source that may become available for this work? The funds will be used for the improvement, reconstruction, maintenance, crack sealing, and engineering of roads and tree removals as needed. This will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7(6) and will not lapse until December 31st, 2025. I'd like to have Fred McGarrett, Board of Selectmen, please discuss this one.
Yes, this article would provide additional funding for roadway reconstruction and resurfacing above and beyond the current highway budget. A similar article was passed last year And with those funds, plus the highway budget, we were able to take and overlay 3.2 miles of roadway. And that included Parade Road, Griffin Road, Nottingham Road, and Middle Road. So this money certainly would be able to take and either do the reconstruction or the resurfacing of those roadways, of additional roadways.
Thank you. Okay, I don't know if the road agent is here, Steve Rollins, are you here? I don't know if you wanted to add anything? No? Okay. I'd like to open up for any amendments or discussions on warrant article number 2. Anyone would like to speak on this? Yes, please.
Andrea Hoteon, Lakeview Lane. The amount approved last year of $200,000, if you again can find the road budget line, you can see that last year's budget ended up being like $762,000 and the expenditures were only 400 and some. So if I understand a non-lapsing article correctly, the $200,000 from last year is still available in addition to this new $250. I just want to make sure that I understand that. And I fully support that we need to do things with our roads, so I just wanted to clarify how much might be available and why, if we had money from last year, why it didn't get all spent as we needed to improve roads. Do we not have enough capability with the road agent and the contractors we have to get everything done that needs to be done? Thank you.
The list of roadways that were resurfaced accounted for $347,000 in expenditures. And I'll defer to the town administrator to discuss how much money is remaining in that $200,000 from last year, which I believe is nothing.
That $200,000 last year was spent first, and then whatever remaining costs above and beyond that was pulled out of the road reconstruction budget. What you're seeing in here as a year-to-date actual spending was $148,611 left. Those were projects that were not able to be completed by the end of the year as we ran out of time. The $200,000 was spent first.
Thank you.
Hi, Pete Schumelhoop, Raymond Road. The $250,000 that they want to spend on road reconstruction is a very small amount. I know it is a large amount when you look at our budget, but being in construction and $250,000 does not get you a lot of work completed. The problem is we are getting behind on fixing our roads, and the cost of fixing the roads is going up annually considerably. Sometimes it goes up 10 to 15% depending on what's going on. We need to fix our roads because the longer we delay in fixing the roads, the costs are only going to be more, and then the amount that we have to take out of our budget is going to be increasingly, phenomenal, because this is what I do for a living. It costs a lot of money to fix roads, and having worked on some of the roads in the town of Deerfield, there isn't anybody in this building or in town that hasn't found some roads that they wish they would get fixed. So, I mean, we're taking small amounts of money and we're trying to do the best we can. And this is certainly something that we want to pass because it's going to help in the long run, because the cost of fixing the roads is only going to go up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Riddle.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Boyle, McCarran Road. I've advocated for these articles for years, and I'm glad we finally started putting them on the ballot a couple of years ago. What's interesting is when we talk about articles passing or not passing by the voters, the things that express the voters' priorities pass, and the things that don't express the voters' priorities do not pass. That's my opinion. these articles have passed overwhelmingly for at least the last 2 years. And I suspect that this article will also pass overwhelmingly. We are, to say we're getting behind on our roads is certainly a polite understatement. We are woefully behind in our road maintenance and have been for many, many years. And while this is, in the grand scheme of things, a relatively small bite of the apple, it is a much needed bite of the apple. And so I would strongly encourage everybody to support this article come March 8th. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or amendments for warrant article number 2? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and ask the town clerk to place this article on the official ballot as written. Thank you. We'll move on to warrant article number 3, please. So warrant article 3 reads, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $95,000 to be placed in a previously established police department building expendable trust fund for the purpose of having engineering and architectural plans prepared for a new police department and for the dissemination of information relative to the planning and design of such building. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0-0, recommended by the Municipal Budget Committee 11-0-0, estimated tax impact 12 cents. I'd like to introduce our Board of Selectmen Fred Gary to discuss this item.
This money would be used for the preparation of design plans for a police station at a location yet to be finalized. As you may recall, in 2019, the town meeting had voted to raise $50,000 for preliminary work on the location or design on a police station. And the preliminary plans that came back to the Board of Selectmen, the board felt that the numbers that had estimate that had been prepared was really too expensive. So the Mrs. Cady had recommended or made a comment that, gee, the Board of Selectmen should see how the town of Farmington constructed their safety building. And Andy Robertson, formerly the chair, had gone over to speak to the folks in Farmington. And they had said that they had approached this with a design-build project, and that's how they proceeded. And then the Board of Selectmen met with the contractor, who was the contractor who actually built that safety complex. And after speaking with that contractor, the board decided that the best approach would end up being for a design-build project. And to provide an explanation as to what that is, you hire a team consisting of a contractor and an architect to work together in putting up a building to meet a budget which the town would give to them. So the board had taken and advertised for requests for qualification packages, and we received two packages that had come in. One was from Ekman Construction, and the second one was from Hutter Construction. And following review of the packages and also an interview with Hutter Construction, the board decided to go with Hutter Construction and Warrant Street Architects for the design-build team. And again, the money that had been raised at $50,000 in 2019, we have $35,000 remaining on that. And this money of $95,000 would be put together with that $35,000 remaining to provide the design, the money for the design of the building. And as I mentioned earlier, we're still, amongst the board members, still discussing about possible locations for the police station, and we anticipate that we'll be sitting down, assuming this article passes, we'll be sitting down with the architect contractor team to really finalize the location for the police station.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to open up discussion for article number 3. If anyone would like to propose an amendment or discuss this article? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and ask the town clerk to place the article on the official ballot as read. Okay, we'll move on to article number 4. Okay, so article number 4 reads, to see if the town will vote to establish a Dobbs Cape Cemetery Expansion Expendable Trust Fund, for RSA 31:19A, for the purpose of expanding the existing Dobbs Cape Cemetery to accommodate the town's future burial needs and to raise and appropriate $80,000 to put in the fund. Cemetery trustees to be named as agents to expend from this fund. So I'd like to introduce Alden Gill to speak on this behalf.
We have a number of cemetery articles this year. We have very active cemetery trustees. That being said, I'd like to recognize Phil Deliberative as one of those cemetery trustees to speak on the following articles.
Thank you. Phil Deliberative on Nottingham Road on the Cemetery Committee. I'm not going to read the explanation that's provided in the document. I'll answer some questions if necessary. Just as a piece of history, the Dove Case Cemetery is on the corner of Cape Road and Nottingham Road. And back in the 80s, there was a family in Epsom that donated the property, the Dove's Case Forest and the Dove's Case Cemetery to the town of Deerfield. It's an inactive cemetery, but the cemetery itself is placed on a piece of property that's approximately 3.5 acres. So the 3.5 acres would add cemetery space for the town, as the old center cemetery, Meeting House Hill Road, would be filled up.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or offer any amendments to the article number 4? Yes.
Andrea Hoteling, Lakeview Lane. I simply have a question, and I think Phil is knowledgeable about this because I think he has something to do with the trust funds as well. I don't have any current information about trust funds, but back in 2019, there was about $290,000 in various trust funds one's called the Cemetery Land Acquisition Trust Fund. There are several others that are called Maintenance of the Old Center Road, the Morrison one, and then there are just 2 common trust funds, Common Fund A and B, that say they have to do with cemeteries. And I wanted to know from the trust side of things, are those restricted? They can't be used for this current purpose?
Yes.
Okay.
The trust funds for the cemetery committee has been working with the chair of the trust committee. My names are failing me. Joanne Waring, to investigate all the trust funds that are parts of cemeteries. There are cemetery trust funds that only allow the work to be done on that particular plot in a particular cemetery, and nothing else can be spent from those trusts. So all of those have been investigated, and there's no money available through those trusts to make this Dobbs Cave improvement.
Thank you.
One quick question for you, Phil, that I've actually never asked you. How many plots are we going to get out of this expansion, approximately?
At this point, it's not known. The $80,000 will be spent to investigate. We'll do test pits, land improvement funds. There'll be an estimate of how that'll be the first step in spending these funds, and then ultimately a layout, and then the numbers will be there.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments, amendments for article number 4? Seeing none, we'll ask that the town clerk place the article on the official ballot as written. Thank you. Let's move on to article number 5. Article number 5 is to see if the town will vote to establish a municipal cemetery restoration expendable trust fund per RSA 31:19A for the purpose of restoring neglected town-owned cemeteries to a point where they can be easily maintained by the town going forward, and to raise an appropriate $80,000 to put in the fund. Cemetery trustees to be named as agents to expend from the fund. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 400. Recommended by the Municipal Budget Committee, 1100. Estimated tax impact, 10 cents. So there's some background there as well. The cemetery trustees recently discovered that there are 29 town-owned cemeteries. By state law, all town-owned cemeteries must be maintained by the town. In the past, the town was aware of only 6 of the cemeteries. So I'd like to invite Selectman Gill to speak on this as well.
Again, I'd like to thank the cemetery trustees for their hard work finding all these cemeteries, and I'd like to recognize Phil to explain it.
The explanation in both documents and the handout are quite clear. Over the past several years, the cemetery committee has been researching by looking at deeds and looking at past reports, and discovered that of the 109 or 111 cemeteries that are actually in Deerfield, the town's only been maintaining 6, and presently we've discovered that the town owns 28 or 29. I think there's still some questions on the deed restrictions on some of those. This is just a catch-up article. If you go to some of the cemeteries that the town owns that haven't been maintained since forever, there's trees growing in them, there's walls that have fallen down, there's monuments that have fallen. So this is a catch-up to clean up. And then we would go to the normal budget for yearly maintenance.
Thank you. Is there any amendments? Yes, please. Good morning.
Harriet Katie Hill, Center Road. I think that we should make the cemetery more central, such as buy some land and add to the one at Nottingham Square. It was expanded, I think, by Joe Brown's family, but Hay Road is not a great road wide. If you want to send a parade up there to put memorials on the graves and so forth. I also think the Meeting House Hill one, buy some land, add to it, something that is more central for the citizens so that families can easily get to and have good roads to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments for article number 5? Any amendments or comments? Seeing none, we'll ask the town clerk to place the article on the official ballot. Move on to article number 6, please. Article number 6 reads to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $77,000, which includes additional wages and required benefits, for the purpose of providing cost of living raises to the town employees in the amount of 3.5%. It's recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500. Recommended by the Municipal Budget Committee, 1010. Estimated tax impact, 10 cents. I'd like to have Deerfield Board of Selectmen member Fred McGarry speak on this.
As the article says, this would provide a 3.5% pay raise, a cost of living adjustment for town employees. The board had looked at what other communities were proposing for this year for COLAs for their town employees, and this was in the range of what other towns were proposing, and that's how we ended up with this 3.5% cost of living adjustment.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, in response to what Mr. McGarry just, how he just characterized the the adjustment as a cost of living adjustment, I would like to propose an amendment to the warrant article by removing the phrase cost of living raises and insert instead the phrase a cost of living adjustment.
So changing just the word from raises to adjustment.
No.
Because it's the same words, cost of living, right? Or is there something different?
There is, insert the phrase a cost of living adjustment.
Okay, so we have an amendment. I need a second. Is there a second? Okay, so discussion. Discussion on this amendment to remove the phrase cost of living raises and inserting the phrase a cost of living adjustment. Yes, Mr. Riddle?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Vernon, Kevin. Usually the maker of the motion speaks to the motion. I've worked several years with her on the budget committee. She is our language expert, and I will always defer to her in proper grammar on articles like this, and I would encourage everybody to support the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. If you can take out your voting cards, the blue voting cards that you were given. Okay, so the amendment reads, to remove the phrase cost of living raises and insert the phrase a cost of living adjustment. All those in favor of this amendment, please signify by raising your voting card high. Okay, you can lower it. Any opposed to this? Seeing none, the amendment passes. Okay, thank you. Are there any other amendments or discussions on this? Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Vernon, McCarran Road. I fully support this warrant article, and I have every expectation that it will pass at the ballot box. We've had two similar questions put on the ballot over the last several years, and they've been supported by the citizens of Deerfield overwhelmingly. And because I'm quite confident that the proposed operating budget is not going to pass at the ballot box, and understanding that our town employees sorely deserve a pay raise for the work they do for the community that they support. I would encourage everybody to support this. This is another example where the voters support articles that represent their priorities, and they don't support articles that do not represent their priorities. This article, similar articles have passed over the last couple of years, overwhelming majority. I expect this will, and I would encourage everybody to vote in support of this article on March 8th. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Yes, please. Mr. Kupiansky?
John Dubiansky, Church Street. So as most folks know, I work for two municipalities. I work full-time for the city of Manchester and part-time for Deerfield. And in the current economy we're in right now, you want to look at this as a recruitment and retention issue. When hiring is good, it's very difficult for the public sector to compete with the private sector. So like where I work full-time, we're losing employees left and right to the private sector. So this is one of those things where if we could get the wages a little closer to what the private sector is seeing, it makes it easier to replace people who leave and to retain the people we have. So I would also encourage it to be supported for that reason. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion or amendments for warrant article number 6? Seeing none, I'd like to instruct the clerk to place this article as amended on the official ballot. Thank you. Move on to number 7. Article 7. Okay, number 7 reads, warrant article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be placed in the previously established fire apparatus and equipment capital reserve fund. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500, recommended by the Municipal Budget Committee 1100. Estimated tax impact 6 cents. I'd like to introduce our Fire Chief Matt Fisher to discuss this warrant article. Chief?
So the Article 7 is just continuing funding the existing capital reserve fund we have that's dedicated for fire apparatus and fire equipment. The previous fund that we had, dating back 9-10 years ago, we were able to save up about half the cost of our engine 4, which is the 2013. At the time, that truck cost $440,000. Town of Candia recently purchased a new engine, which is similar to engine 4, for the cost of about $650,000. So the past decade, we've seen a quite dramatic increase in cost of everything. So we're just looking to continue to fund and try to put a little bit of money away for when we do come before the town to, replace one of our trucks. We have some money set aside to offset the cost.
Thank you. Are there any amendments or discussions on warrant article number 7? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and ask the clerk to place this article on the official ballot as written. Move on to article number 8, please. Warrant article 8 reads, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $35,000 to establish the cemetery general maintenance expendable reserve fund, and with said funds to come from unassigned fund balance, pursuant to RSA 31:19A and RSA 289:2A. All future proceeds received from the sale of cemetery lots in Deerfield cemeteries and any interest gained thereon will be deposited therein for the maintenance of cemeteries, with the cemetery trustees named as agents to expend from the fund. No amount to be raised from taxation. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500, recommended by Municipal Budget Committee 1100. So Selectman Dill?
Again, not to sound like a broken record, I'd like to recognize Phil Deliberative.
As described in the document, this is to establish that cemetery general maintenance expendable fund, something that doesn't exist today, and to see that the funds from the sale of the lots goes into that fund so that it continue to support itself, as opposed to someone putting money into a trust for that specific lot, which would then limit how the cemetery committee could spend the money.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any amendments or discussions for warrant article number 8? Seeing none, we'll ask the town clerk to kindly place the article on the official ballot as written. Article number 9. Article 9 reads, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of up to $25,000 to be placed in the previously established municipal government buildings infrastructure expendable trust fund, said funds to come from unassigned fund balance. No amount to be raised from taxation. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500, recommended by the Municipal Budget Committee 1100. I'd like to introduce the Board of Selectmen Fred McGarry to discuss this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. The current balance in the municipal government buildings infrastructure expendable trust fund, which is a big line of words to describe this, but the current balance of that fund is $22,042, and during 2021, money from the fund was used to repair the central fire station roof, repair of the front portion of the roof on the GB White building, conversion of the heating system for the Birch Road fire station, and repair of the town hall sprinkler system storage tank. We had a leak in that storage tank, and that had to be repaired. And to give you a further idea of what this money is used for, in 2019, we had repairs that consisted of replacing of 2 sections of the roof of the GB White building, replacing the furnace at the highway garage, and also then updating the town building and fire burglary system that we have. So again, that just gives you an idea of what the monies in that fund would be used for expenditures.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any comments, discussions? Yes, please.
I have a question. placed in the previously established municipal government building infrastructure with expendable trust funds, and to come from unassigned fund balances, meaning money left over in the budget at the end of the year, correct?
Correct.
Then it's not, no amount will be raised from taxes. Money that goes back to reduce taxes that is unexpended is money left over, or money taken from unexpended is money taken from taxes. I just think that statement should never be there. I don't mind putting the money away to do the projects. I just think people are misled by saying no amount will be raised from taxes when it's already been raised from taxes and is just going to be saved and put into a fund so that we won't have to raise more money.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or amendments for warrant article number 9? Seeing none, we'll ask the town clerk to place the article on the official ballot as written. Article number 10. Okay. So article number 10 reads, to see if the town will vote to establish a recreational facility maintenance expendable trust fund per RSA 31:19A for the purpose of executing general town field court maintenance upkeep and to maintain existing playgrounds, athletic fields, athletic courts, and surrounding areas, and to raise and appropriate $25,000 to put in the fund, with this amount to come from unassigned fund balance. Further, to name the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend from said fund, no amount to be raised from taxation. Recommended by Board of Selectmen 4-1-0. Recommended by Municipal Budget Committee 9-2-0. I'd like to have our Board of Selectmen member, Mr. Barnes, speak on this.
Yeah. I'd like to ask our Parks and Rec Director, Nick Lawrence, to come to the microphone now and speak to this, please.
Good morning, Nick Lawrence, Parks and Rec Director, Town of Deerfield. So I'll just read the information at the bottom to start. Town of Deerfield currently has 3 playgrounds, an outdoor basketball court, an outdoor tennis court, 2 baseball fields, 2 softball fields, and 2 soccer field locations, which need routine attention to maintain safe playing surfaces, areas, visual appearance, and overall longevity. Town facility maintenance may include, but is not limited to, court resurfacing, mowing, tick spraying, herbicide treatment for baseball and softball fields, infield mix, playground mulching, tree trimming as necessary. Historically, maintenance has been subsidized solely by the Parks and Recreation Department Revolving Fund, which is designed for the programs. Due to the expansion of town facilities in recent years, the department is now seeking community support to help maintain its valued facilities, which are open to all Deerfield residents. So just really urging the town to vote in support of this so that we can upkeep all of our facilities that we have in town. Happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Thank you. Are there any questions, discussions? Yes, please.
Rebecca Hutchinson, Lang Road. I actually am going to comment not on the specifics of this, but the no amount to be raised from taxation. I actually agree with Mrs. Harriet Cady that this is a misleading statement. And the other thing that kind of bothers me about it is that it suggests to me that all taxation is bad, and that's not true. You know, when we put public money into all kinds of things that we all benefit from, libraries, the roads, the fire department, and on and on and on in this town. And I don't like the suggestion that taxes are bad. You know, we all want our money spent well and carefully, but taxes are not a bad thing. They bring us the things that we need to live every day. So, for various reasons, I kind of object to that sentence as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments,
second comment on these warrant articles that say no amount raised from taxes. What amount goes first into what account? In other words, if you have $100,000 left from this year's budget, will it go to warrant Article 8 or warrant Article 9 or 10? You do not give us an order in which the priority of reserving funds. And I think that should be on the warrant instead of no amount raised from taxes. The priority of how you will take leftover monies and then spend them towards what we vote at the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to clarify that phrase, unassigned fund balance, is often misunderstood. That actually doesn't represent the money left over at the end of the budget year. The unassigned fund balance is our funds in the town's bank accounts. Any warrant article that passes with that language in it to be funded from the unassigned fund balance is immediately funded upon passage by the voters. It's not leftover dollars from the end of the budget.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Marjorie Whitmore, North Road. So I kind of do this with my job with warrant articles. I actually put them together and stuff like that, and there's a lot of legal stuff that goes on behind it. But I understand the concerns from the two ladies that had gotten up and spoken. Just a suggestion for future, sometimes it kind of helps to say no. The way that it's worded, you might want to change it to say no additional amount to be raised from taxation because it has already been raised. Just a thought.
Thank you. Sir?
Will Huebner, Sunrise Terrace Lane. I just want to say that it seems like there's enough sentiment in the room about this phrase being kind of misleading, of no taxation, no additional taxation, that we should amend it, or I would suggest that we propose that we amend this to strike this sentence. I don't see that it adds anything to the merit of the article itself. It simply seems to be a way of saying it's not going to cost you anything, but I don't know that that's necessary for the citizens to consider this. So because of the sentiments I've heard, I just wanted to suggest that we do a vote and see if we, as a town, believe that we should remove this first or not.
So are you proposing an amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so can you write that up for us when you get one? The secretary back to this, by the secretary, or the supervisor checklist?
Yep.
Yeah, please.
That language is actually recommended by the Department of Revenue Administration. That is why it is in the warrant article the way it is.
Okay. Is there any legal implications for us to take that out?
If that motion passes as the proposed amendment was made, there's a risk DRA will cancel this warrant article and consider it advisory only. So that's a risk of this motion.
Okay, so, yeah, just a moment. Did you have anything to add, or are you just writing? Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Verbal, McCarran Road. So, with all due respect, I don't agree with the little bit of a fuzzy legal opinion that it would put the article at risk. Language that's recommended, there's a difference between language that's recommended and language that's required. And it's been my understanding of going to town meetings and deliberative sessions for, I don't know, 36 years now, I guess, that language is not required. And that it would not put the article at risk. And if the motion that the gentleman is bringing forward is simply to remove that line, I will second the motion. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor to strike the words "no amount to be raised from taxation." You wrote taxes, but I think you meant taxation, correct? Yeah, okay. And Mr. Verbo, you seconded that, correct? So it's properly moved and seconded, and we'll have further discussion. So, please.
Hi, Christina Pretorius, Bloomfield Road. So would removing this phrase do it only for this warrant article and future ones, or the two that we've already voted on?
Only for this one. We are only discussing this warrant article.
Okay, thanks.
Jeannie Menard, Mountain Road. I'd like an opinion from the select board regarding the risk issue. We've had a legal opinion, we've had another citizen's opinion. The makers or somebody who's vested in this particular article, can you render your opinion as to this kind of amendment to this article? Thank you.
I'd just like to say the town council's currently looking for an answer to this, so I would defer to his opinion.
That proposed language comes directly from DRA. That's why it's in the warrant article. It's consistent with other towns' language that they have in their warrant article. My advice and guidance is if that language is removed from the warrant article, there's a risk DRA may determine that this is an advisory only warrant article.
Ms. Katie,
I would say, having been in the legislature, that it is a fact. Articles that are recommended are not subject to a law if you change them. This is not mandated by law. It's a recommendation to help people to understand that the boards that we elect have recommended it. I do not believe our attorney is correctly interpreting what is the state legislature's intent. But I guarantee you, I will ask our legislature to introduce a bill next year to remove this mandate or their department's recommendation. It's not something that we have to take, so why is it there?
Thank you. Next.
Rebecca Hutchinson, Line Road. So I guess I'll just weigh in. My comment, I meant for it to be just a thing for you folks to think about for next year. I don't think it would make sense. I actually will probably vote against this amendment because I don't think we want it on some of the articles and not others. So I would encourage us to vote this down right now, but I would ask the board to just look into this for next year and at the very least try to make the language a little bit more accurate. That would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lang?
Zach Langley, South Road. I just want to comment. So the Board of Selectmen runs all these articles past legal counsel specifically to make sure that they're going to pass and they're going to pass legally. I would always encourage the members of the public here to side with our legal counsel. They're the ones that we pay them for a reason. We pay them to make sure that we're in compliance with the laws. I understand the sentiment about the phrase, but it has no impact on the actual merit of the article. It's just simply what is prescribed and what is recommended by law.
Thank you. Next.
Dick Bovier, Church Street. For good or bad, many people decide how to vote based upon how it will affect their tax rate and how much more they might be paying. This statement is grammatically correct, so that there will be no funds from taxation. Will in the future. It doesn't speak to the past. Mrs. Katie is quite accurate that it has been taken from taxes in the past. But the point of having this is to let the voter know whether or not there will be additional taxation in the upcoming tax year. So I would recommend that we vote against this amendment because this statement provides information that people want. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Earl.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Bartle, McCarran Road. So, we've passed a couple articles along that include this language. I would remind the body that a motion to reconsider those articles could be made, so that if this motion passes, that line could be removed from articles we've already considered by a simple motion to reconsider. So we shouldn't allow that to hang us up on that. I guess my question is, what does advisory mean in this case? So if legal counsel suggests that removing this sentence from the article makes the article advisory, does that mean that the select board can still choose to take the action if the article passes?
Advisory from the DRA's perspective would mean this article has no effect. If there is a line item in the budget, if that passes, or if there's somewhere in the budget for this purpose, then yes, potentially, that could happen. My advice is that if that language is removed from this warrant article, it's altering DRA's proposed language, and there's a risk that DRA may have a concern with that. I agree with the comments that there's nothing prescribed in law requiring that language. That language comes from DRA.
Follow if I might, Mr. Moderator.
Please.
So, I just don't understand how an informational sentence included in an article, if removed, because the sentence has no bearing on the amount of money, on the purpose of the money, and how the money is to be used. It's simply to give background information of where the money may come from, but that's already stated in the article. So I'm having trouble understanding how removing that sentence somehow renders this article advisory. It is a very clear statement to direct the select board to take that action with that money. And I guess before I could change my opinion on the amendment, because I support the amendment, I would want somebody to give me some sort of legal explanation as to how removing that would somehow make the article advisory instead of binding by the opinion of the DRA. It's hard to believe that the DRA would look at this article without that sentence in it and say, you know what, the Deerfield voters, they weren't telling their select board to do this. They weren't telling their select board to take this action. It was just to give it advice of what maybe they could do. I just don't see how any of that adds up. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Okay. Any final comments?
Move the question.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so we now have the amendment on to strike that no amount to be raised from taxation from warrant article number 10. Can you grab your voting card, please, your blue voting card? So if you are in favor of this amendment to strike the words no amount to be raised from taxation from this warrant article, please raise your voting card. Thank you. Okay, and if you are opposed to removing this, okay, the nays have it, so the amendment is canceled, defeated. So we are back to the original, article number 10. Any further comments, concerns, questions on warrant article number 10? Okay, seeing none, we'll ask the clerk to place the original article on the official ballot as written. We'll move on to article number 11, please. Okay, so article number 11 reads, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $20,318, which represents an equity pay adjustment for both the town clerk tax collector and the deputy town clerk tax collector, and increasing the salary line from $82,406 to $99,100, resulting in the clerk collector base salary equal to $58,100 and the deputy base salary equal to $41,000, plus the combined payroll taxes of $3,624.26. The purpose is to bring positions' wages to comparable standards and should not be confused with merit raises. Should this article pass, it would be only funded in the event that the 2022 operating budget fails to pass. These adjustments will be effective January 1st, 2022. This was recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500. Recommended by the Municipal Budget Committee, 1100. Estimated tax impact, 3 cents. I'd like to have our Board of Selectmen member, Fred McGarry, please speak to this.
This article would provide an adjustment to the salary and benefits for the town clerk, tax collector, and the assistant to bring them in line with the surrounding communities of Deerfield. As many of you know, the town clerk and tax collector issue the motor vehicle registrations, marriage licenses, birth, marriage, and death certificates, and dog licenses. They also administer all elections as well as voter registration and absentee ballots, issue and collect all taxes, and maintain all town records. A comparison was made with other towns which have a full-time salaried combined town clerk and tax collector, and with a population similar to that of Deerfield. And this adjustment was a result of that comparison. And I can defer to Kelly Roberts if she wants to add anything to that.
Thank you, Mr. McGarry, for speaking to this article. I'm just asking for everyone's support today for this article. Back when we were preparing for the budget, both Kim and I did extensive research on our wages and adjustments that we're requesting. If you're interested in learning more about that, I have placed on the table in back near the supervisors of the checklist some detailed information. And I'm just asking for your support. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you. Okay, are there any discussions, amendments for warrant article number 11? Yes, please.
Kelly, thank you for putting the sheet with the salaries of the other towns. The one thing missing is, are they 40-hour positions, 30-hour position? I know some towns only have the office open 3 days a week, so we don't have a comparison. Are they number of hours that the offices are open?
Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet, for that question. One thing I would like you to do, if you haven't already, is on the table, if you could grab the equity adjustment background. Okay, so what we did is, when we did the research, we were comparing us to like communities as far as a combined elected town clerk tax collector with a full-time deputy. And we, the towns that were similar to us by structure isn't necessarily our surrounding towns. And so the surrounding towns, their structure may be different as far as their hours, their deputy might not be full-time, might be part-time. So we have provided you information with the surrounding towns, but I encourage you to look at this packet we put together that kind of illustrates the comparisons to communities closer to Deerfield.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, please.
Kimberly Black, Meeting House Hill. I'm just wondering if this is separate to the previous warrant that we just passed about the increased salaries. And if it's separate, I'm wondering why you did an additional warrant article to that. Thank you.
The cost of living adjustment would be in addition to this correction, or revision, I should say.
Thank you. Others? Please.
Harold Rose, Church Street. I end up having being at the George B. White Building a number of nights a week. I go to various meetings as an observer.
And I'm sure nobody needs to be told that the number of times that I see Kelly or Kim leaving at 6 or 7 at night on those days is numerous. It's just not uncommon. So it's not just the hours that the office is open, but I think the people in Deerfield should understand that the service they actually get from the town clerk tax collector. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, please? Yes, please.
Joanne Bradbury, Deerfield citizen. I would like to speak in favor of this warrant article. The service that is provided to the town by these individuals in the clerk's office is extraordinary. And if you are in search of something difficult to find, they will find it if it's in the records. And that's hard, that's a lot of work. And they really do perform, as I said, extraordinary service for the town, and I urge people to vote in favor of this warrant article.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
Andrea Hotel in Lakeview Lane. I also am in favor of this article. I did have one concern, however, in the wording that says, plus combined payroll taxes of $36,24.26, wondering if that really is payroll taxes and benefits, retirement being a big cost of increasing a salary for an employee. So I just wanted to make sure that it encompassed the entire extra cost of raising the salaries.
I glanced over to the town administrator, and he said yes, it covers everything.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, please.
Nate Oxnard, Mountain View Road. If this is an article and if it passes, what does that do to next year? Does that mean that it's like a one year bump and then it's not in the operating budget the following year? How does that play out in subsequent years?
That one's actually a pretty easy answer. If it passes by warrant article, it will be included in next year's budget, in the default budget, just like the librarian position was last year.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. All right. Any other additional comments, concerns, or amendments to number 11? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and ask the town clerk to place the article on the official ballot. We'll move on to article number 12. Article number 12 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be placed in the previously established fire department vehicle and equipment expendable trust fund. Said fund to come from unassigned fund balance, no amount to be raised from taxation. Recommended by Board of Selectmen 500. Recommended by Municipal Budget Committee 1100. I'd like to have our Fire Chief Fisher speak on this article, please.
Thank you. This fund was established a number of years ago. Basically, it's what we've been using it for is for unexpected maintenance for the apparatus, ranging from complete pump replacement on one of the engines, motor work on another truck, and body work on the command vehicle. So it's something that we look to have funded. It allows us to kind of repair and maintain the fleet as needed without dipping into the operating budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Deborah Wyman, Nottingham Road. I just have a quick question. Does that include all the EMS trucks?
Yes.
Any other questions, amendments, discussion? Good morning.
Hi, Marjorie Whitmore, North Road. Just a quick question, because I believe this is the last one to be funded from surplus, which I have no problem with. But I was actually wondering, and if you don't have the information, that's fine, but I was just wondering for the last time, I believe your year end is 12/31, so you may not have that answer, but from the last time that we did have a surplus, I was just wondering if anybody could tell me what that surplus was and how many warrant articles possibly got funded from the surplus?
Again, unassigned fund balance is not from the budget surplus, it's from the town's bank account.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that probably people do not understand in the majority that fund balance is an amount of money that DRA wants the town to keep on hand in case of an emergency. So what is our fund balance now? As DRA recommends, I believe between 7 and 15% of town value to be kept on hand for the fund balance. We probably used some of that back in the day of the flood, but I'm not sure. I just know if we spend the fund balance, are we going to have to renew and make up money there to keep on hand that which DRA recommends?
Thank you. Are there other comments, questions, or amendments for Article 12? Seeing none, we'll place this article on, town clerk place this article on the official ballot as written. Number 13, Article 13. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be used to purchase a utility vehicle for Deerfield Parks and Recreation. A total of $5,000 will be spent from the Parks and Recreation Revolving Fund, with the remaining amount to come from taxes. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 400. Recommended by the Municipal Budget Committee 7-3-1. Estimated tax impact 2 cents. I'd like to have our Board of Selectmen member Dwight Barnes speak to this. Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. Once again, I'd like to ask our Director of Parks and Recreation, Nick Lawrence, to come up to the mic and speak to this. Thank you.
So once again, I'll just reiterate the information box that we have here with the article. The department is seeking to replace a utility cargo van it disposed of 3 years ago. A newly acquired utility vehicle will be used to transport supplies and equipment to locations within the town for department business, such as conducting programs and events, executing routine trash runs from the ball fields to the transfer station, and towing the department trailer as necessary to facilitate large special events in town. The department is currently using the only vehicle in its possession, a 12-passenger van, or employee-owned personal vehicles to execute all the business of the department. Continuing to use the passenger van as a utility vehicle will put unnecessary wear and tear on an older vehicle not designed for such use. So again, we're just hoping for the support of the community to get a vehicle to conduct this business for the events that we do. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any discussions, please?
John Demansky, Church Street. I just encourage support of this article. It's, as Nick mentioned, we currently have our 12-passenger van doing double duty. We're just wearing it out fast. It's a lot easier, a lot less expensive to replace a vehicle that we're going to feel safe putting dirt and shovels and chicken barbecue grills in the drive from the George V. White to the gazebo field, and just replace a vehicle that we would want to put 12 of other people's children in, hop on 93 and go 65 miles an hour down to Kennedy Lake or whatnot. It's just a better way to preserve a vehicle designed to carry people and acquire a vehicle that's designed to carry stuff, so we're not wearing out our vehicle. We have a much higher safety concern on it. So I would encourage people to support it.
Thank you. Others? Mr. Langlois?
So, a couple of quick questions, but I can get some clarification. I was the vote against, if I recall correctly, at the NBC. So what I'm asking is this for a UTV, a Polaris Ranger, a Gator, a Kubota side-by-side, or is this for a small pickup truck?
I had the same question from the beginning because I read utility as a UTV as well. It's for a small pickup truck or other vehicle that's not the passenger van.
Nick, did you want to follow up on that?
I think that's basically what we're looking for. We don't need anything too crazy. Some of you guys probably remember the red cargo van that we used to have. That did it for us. So something along those lines, or a pickup truck. Again, we're just using it to pull the trailer around town, execute trash runs, and move some sports equipment from here to there. That's the general use for the vehicle that we're hoping to get.
So the follow-up question for that is $15,000 enough to secure that vehicle?
It would be 15,000 plus 5,000 will be spent from the Parks and Rec revolving. So are we looking at a total of 20,000?
No.
Or is that 15 include the 5? Okay, so it's 15,000. So Nick, do you want to answer that, please?
Yeah, so it would be 10,000 raised from taxes, and 5,000 would be what we'd be looking to put in from the department. So, you know, the hope is that we get something. Again, it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. We do all of our business right in town, so something safe enough to get us there. But we're not looking for like a brand new truck or a van.
Okay.
So is the Board of Selectmen confident that $15,000 is enough to buy that vehicle?
I guess our interpretation is that this would be a second-hand vehicle, it wouldn't be a new one.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions, concerns, amendments to warrant article 13? Seeing none, we'll ask the town clerk to kindly place the article on the official ballot. We'll move on to article number 14. Okay, so warrant article 14 reads, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be placed in the previously established rescue vehicles and equipment capital reserve fund, recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500, recommended by the Municipal Budget Committee, 1100. Estimated tax impact, 1 cent. I'd like to introduce our fire chief back. Chief Fisher, please.
Thank you. This is another fund that was established a number of years ago, looking to continue to put more money aside. Some uses this fund has been used for in the past. This fund has helped offset the cost of replacing our LifePak 12, which is our EKG device, all-in-one AED, heart monitor, if you will, as well as our Lucas All-Pulse that was purchased with the help of Concord Hospital. So it's been used in the past, and we're looking to kind of continue to save, because most things in the field aren't cheap, ranging upwards of 35,000 plus, depending on what we're looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, or amendments for warrant article number 14? Seeing none, we'll ask the clerk to kindly place the article on the official ballot as written. Warrant article 15 is next. Okay, this one reads, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $8,000 to be used by the Northwood Lake Watershed Association to control the milfoil in Northwood Lake. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500. Recommended by the Municipal Budget Committee, 1100. Estimated tax impact, 1 cent. I'd like to ask our Board of Selectmen member, Pittman.
Thank you, Dan. We do this on a yearly basis, and it seems to be working. We've got a lot of property in Deerfield that's on Northwood Lake, and we want to maintain the water quality to keep the value up as much as we can for taxation purposes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, concerns, or amendments for warrant article number 15? Seeing none, we'll ask the clerk to kindly place the article on the official ballot as written. Article number 16. That one reads, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,500 to be used by the Pleasant Lake Preservation Association to increase the number of hours for trained attendants to provide courtesy boat inspections at the public access ramp on Gulf Road to prevent the introduction and spread of exotic aquatic plants like variable milfoil and aquatic nuisance animals like zebra mussels from entering Pleasant Lake. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500. Recommended by the Municipal Budget Committee, 1100. Estimated tax impact, 1 cent. I'd like to have Mr. Pittman go ahead and speak on this behalf as well.
There's not much else to say, Dan. It's well spelled out in the article here, and we need to keep the volunteers. There's hundreds of hours of volunteer time, and this picks up the slack when we run out of volunteers.
Okay, thank you. Sir? would you speak?
Will Huber, Sunrise Terrace Lane, and I happen to be also the president of the POPA, which is the one that benefits from the funds. We use it for our lake host program, which is, you notice the people that inspect the boats, they look for all the invasive species, they make sure the boats are clean, they ask them what lakes they've gone to, they give them educational material. So I think this is an extremely important way to protect the natural resource that we have here in Deerfield. I would encourage the town to support this as they always have in the past. And PLPA appreciates the town's support of this warrant article.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions, or amendments for article number 16? Seeing none, we'll ask the town clerk to place the article on the official ballot as written. Thank you, Phil. Number 17. Warrant article number 17 reads, to see if the town will vote to discontinue the appointed office of highway agent and authorize the town to elect a highway agent. The current elected highway agent shall continue to hold the office until 2023 municipal election, at which time the town will elect the highway agent. If adopted, the authority of the town to elect the highway agent shall continue in effect until changed by a majority vote at an annual or special meeting. This is a petition warrant article, and I'd like to invite Mr. Verbo to speak on this behalf, who entered the petition.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Verbo, McCarran Road. So I submitted this citizen petition warrant article at the request of constituents. So last year, we considered a warrant article that read the exact opposite of this. So we voted to discontinue, I don't know, what, 100 years, 200 years of Deerfield's history of electing our highway agent and switching that over to having the select board appoint a highway agent. The reason I was willing to submit this at the request of constituents is last year was an extraordinarily unusual year in that we changed the date of our elections, our voting in Deerfield by a couple of months, and we had record low turnout. We had more than a third fewer voters show up last year than we have on average for at least the last decade. And given the fact that the question was decided by a fairly narrow margin under a very low turnout, it simply seemed fair to place the question on the ballot again to make sure that we really are discerning the will of the people of Deerfield. And so that's why I chose to be the person to bring this forth. This question has been asked in the past, certainly within the last decade that I've lived here. This is the first year. Last year was the first year that this question was passed, and again by a narrow margin. If we remember a little bit of history, you know, there's some odd dynamics, in my opinion, between the highway department, the highway agent, not the department, the agent, and the select board. The previous highway agent that was elected, one of the first orders of business of the select board was to try to reduce the salary of that elected individual. That was deemed as not proper, and that action did not take place, and the salary has remained since then. The only reason I support that we continue to elect our highway agent is I am very nervous that this will become a cost driver to our community in the future. We've already heard testimony in public meetings by select board members that when our building inspector, who also is in charge of our transfer station, retires, it'll likely require 2 people to replace that individual, and probably at significantly higher salaries, and there's other examples. And I'm afraid that if we go from an elected highway agent with a defined salary set by the voters of Deerfield, with contested races, right? There's always several people that step up to run for highway agent in Deerfield. But if we go to appointed office, what we're going to find is that we're going to have difficulty attracting individuals that want to take that job at the salary it currently is. And it's an opinion. But I think we really run the risk that we're going to hear, well, we can't find the qualified individual with the certifications that we're looking for to be our highway agent unless we increase the salary. And right now, times are tough. I don't think that this is the time to do that. But again, not to be repetitive, but to go back to the real reason. The reason for putting this back on the ballot is because last year we had a record low voter turnout, and we decided a very important question to the community by a very slim margin, and that it's worth asking the community a second time whether or not they want to continue to elect their highway agent or whether they prefer to go and have that be an appointed position. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. And I just want to include our attorney's done a review on this petition warrant article. They review all warrant articles and indicated that the second sentence where it reads, the current elected highway agent shall continue to hold office until 2023 municipal election, at which time the town will elect a highway agent. That one sentence only is unenforceable per RSA 66917B. However, the rest of the warrant article is fine and is enforceable as is. So just wanted to provide that information. Sir?
Zach Langlois, South Road. So an overwhelming number of people have asked me to speak today and make an attempt to amend this article. So I do have an amendment I would like to propose. And so my amendment would be to move to amend the petition warrant article 17 by restating the article as follows. Shall we express an advisory view that the position of town highway agent be an appointed position as approved by the voters in the 2021 municipal election?
Okay. Is there a second? There's properly moved and seconded. We'll open this up for discussion. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to reread the amendment that was made. So we're going to change article number 17's wording to read, shall we express an advisory view that the position of town highway agent be an appointed position as approved by the voters in the 2021 municipal election. This was moved and seconded, so we'll open for discussion. So, sir, please.
So this is simply allowing the community to reaffirm the decision it made last year at the ballot. I think it's an appropriate way to recognize the concerns of some of the other community members and a proper path forward.
Okay, other discussion, please. Sir, in the back. Mr. Riddle.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Verba and Karen Rhodes. So I would disagree with the previous speaker. The purpose of the amendment seems perfectly clear to me, and that is simply to neuter the question and take it from being a binding question to making it advisory. And so there's two things, right? The previous speaker speaks of concerns of citizens, and we want to know the will of the voters. We want to know how they feel. And the way to find out how they feel is to let them vote on a binding question. The reason to neuter a question, to render it essentially ineffective, is so that if you don't get the vote turnout that you're hoping for, it doesn't matter anyway. Right? That's the purpose for rendering an article that goes from enforcement to advisory only. And for that reason, if you really want to know the will of the people, I would say you leave the article alone, you leave it binding, and you respect the will of the voters of Deerfield. There's no reason to make this advisory, except for if you're afraid that you don't agree with this and you're afraid that it's going to pass, and the only way for you to win the day is to make it advisory. So I would strongly encourage people to oppose the amendment as written. Let the voters on a standard voting calendar year where I expect we'll get typical voter turnout, let them allow them the honor, the privilege of having their voice heard. Second, I would ask you to consider carefully, right? If this amendment passes, and this article is made advisory, and the select board chooses not to follow the will of the people that vote, what does that say? So while I don't support making this advisory, please be aware that I would certainly hope that any elected board in Deerfield, elected to represent the will of the people, would still make this change even if it was made advisory. But again, I would encourage people to defeat this amendment. This is an amendment to try to kill this article. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Ms. Gage?
Mr. Moderator, I ask that you declare that amendment illegal under RSA 39:2 and 40:14(4). The law was changed, and I specifically put this in because of something that was done to my article at a town meeting. No petitioned article may be changed other than for grammatical. The intent remains.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to recognize town council. I believe the case was Katie versus the town of Deerfield.
Councilor?
That amendment, if it passes, would be an enforceable amendment. It would change it to advisory. 4013B IV talks to this. It does not change the subject matter. You can permissibly change the intent or purpose as long as you're not changing the subject matter. The other point that's been raised, I'll speak on as well, and that's if the amendment doesn't pass, then this petition warrant article, other than that one sentence, would also be enforceable should it pass election.
Thank you. Thank you.
So are you saying it can be changed?
It does not change the subject matter of the warrant.
It cannot change the intent. It doesn't mean subject matter, it means the intent of the petitioner. And I will go with you on that one to court if you do go with it, because that is not an allowable change to the intent of the petition. Read 39:2.
Thank you. Other comments, please.
Dick Boham, Church Street. I'm not speaking directly to the amendment, but the intent is to change the status of the highway agent to elected from appointed. We haven't even had an appointed highway agent in service yet. There's an assumption that it's a bad idea and we shouldn't make the change. The intent of the voters, however many showed up at the polls, is the intent. Before we decide that they were in error, let's find out if this is a good and workable idea. And let us have that opportunity. The voters voted that way, that was their intent. I think we should continue that way.
Thank you. Other comments, please? Mr. Ellis?
Ray Ellis, South Road. I'm retired from New Hampshire DOT, 35 years, and construction foreman. And I just want to let you know that I think that appointed is the way to go. And the reason would be because of the education that you would get in our highway program as far as building roads. And it would be cost efficient in the long run because we need more training for our personnel in town as far as road repairs and moving forward as far as snow removal and running the budget. I believe that we can gain a lot by having somebody in this position. And like it was said before, we have not yet had one. So I don't think there's a harm in trying to see if we have a candidate out there that's qualified within our money range, and then to see how it goes moving forward. And then later on, if we want to go against that, then at least we know what we have.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good morning. Maura Adams, Thurston Pond Road. First of all, I just want to affirm what this gentleman, or what the previous speaker mentioned, that I think it's a very good idea for our highway agent to have professional training and for the select board to use its good judgment and expertise to be able to choose and appoint someone. Number two, just wanted to point out that if the logic of a previous speaker held, we would need to run a new vote on everything that was voted last year. And why would we apply? We need to redo this vote just for this article when, in fact, if that held, we would need to basically redo the election from last year. I would also encourage you to not be intimidated by threats of litigation for something that our legal counsel has said is a legal amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, any addition? Yes, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. My name's Avery Sear. You said the line that says the current elected highway agent shall continue to hold office until 2023 multi-party election. That line is illegal. Could you just clarify, like, if this passes the way it is now, and you're saying that part's illegal, what does that mean? Like, the election's not going to, like, that person isn't going to be elected in 2023, or what do you mean by it's illegal?
I'll let Officer Counsel clarify.
Last year's annual meeting changed. The New Hampshire default system is an elected highway agent. Last year's annual meeting changed that to appointed. With the change last year, there's statutes that require when that change is made. In RSA 669-17-B lays out that if you go from an elected position and you change it to an appointed position, that office shall continue until the annual town meeting election first following the discontinuance of the office. So under that statute now, that sentence doesn't comply with the law. And that person who was running out their term will then, at this annual meeting, based off of last year's vote, will no longer be the highway agent. There will be a period of time, if it passes as written, where there needs to be an appointed highway agent before the 2023 election, if this amendment or if this petition warrant article passes ultimately a vote. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Yeah. In the back. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Verbo, McCarran Road. So I did not draft the language of this article. I had lawyers draft this article to make sure that the intended purpose would be met. And so I'm in possession of a legal opinion that says there's nothing wrong with any of the wording of the article without the amendment. The sentence that's being questioned right now is more for informational purposes. We have an elected highway agent, and that sentence merely says that if this article passes on March 8th by the voters of Deerfield, that elected highway agent would continue to serve out his full 3-year term, because that's what a highway agent term is in Deerfield. It's a 3-year term. He would serve out the remainder of his 3-year term, and at that point we would have another election to elect another highway agent, as we always have in Deerfield. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Vivianski, and then Alden.
So it's a difficult one for me because I don't support this warrant article, but I also don't support the amendment. We'll leave the legal opinion to the lawyers. My father was a lawyer, not me, so I'm going to trust him that he's right. My concern with this is that if people take the time to draft a petition warrant article to petition their government, a fundamental right in this country, only to have it continually to get changed at town meeting, deliberative session, it discourages people from wanting to have their voice heard via a petition warrant article. So I would encourage we allow this to go to the warrant as written and let the voters make their decision on the warrant article as written by the petitioners on its merits on its own. Let that be the statement as to whether or not people support this particular warrant article, which again, I don't, but I don't support the amendment either.
Thank you.
So I'm speaking as Alderman Hill, not as the Board of Selectmen. One issue we have here is per town council, we had to keep the road agent on for the last year. So that term expires at the next election. Then we switch to appointment. So now, if this warrant article passes as written, without that line, we're going to try to hire somebody for a year. And I don't think we're going to be able to find an applicant for a year. Now, I don't support the warrant article because it passed with 100 votes, which is a pretty wide majority. And the reason that passed is it opens up the town to hire somebody who doesn't live in town. And like Ray said, that opens up the pool of applicants to somebody with professional certification. And I think we're really limiting this town to only people who live in town who are running for this. It's a very highly paid town position. It's $61,000 plus benefits that we're paying right now. I think we're better served for a highly professional applicant with those certifications, even if they don't live in Deerfield. I think we're really selling ourselves short here on one of the most important departments in this town.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gregg?
Hi, Denise Gregg, Deerfield citizen. So I think what's really important for us today, and it's something important that we look at when we look at petition warrant articles. Yes, 25 people sign a petition. However, we have a deliberative body here today, and under SB 2, this is our opportunity to speak to the warrant articles. So, yes, I understand the process that 25 people introduced it, but we have more than 25 people here today, and I ask that we, as under the current system of SB 2, be given that opportunity to speak to the amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this amendment? Somebody in the back, please.
Kimberly Black, Meeting House Hill. I'm going to agree with the prior speakers that disagree with making this advisory. I have wholeheartedly believe that advisory language in any warrant article is a disservice to the townspeople. We come here to vote with our vote individually, each and every one of us, to the town, and that should uphold what the select board should do. I don't think that changing that to advisory and then expecting the select board to also still speak to the people if what's voted in is in a disagreement is fair to the select board or to the people. So if there is a warrant article that belongs on the floor for the people to vote, then the people's voice should be the supreme vote in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Katie?
When I moved to this town in '84, we had several elected positions that have been turned to appointed positions. The only thing I've seen it do is add to my tax bill. The salaries have gone up. The welfare director, when I moved here, earned nothing. Then we had one that earned $2,000. Then we had one that earned $5,000. And then we had one at $10,000. Now it's 25 plus. There are reasons people elect. Sometimes it's just popularity contest. But I like what my Constitution said. I have the right to elect people. And I want to elect my road agent, who, when I saw a branch come down over the road, came up at 8:30 at night, and a tree come down, came up and took the tree down, for which he got held from the selectmen for working past duty. I don't say our road agent is perfect. I like having the chance to choose, and it's one of the offices I've seen 3, 4 people run for every year since I've been here. I mean, when it went to 3-year term, it was every 3 years. But small towns get to know their people. And I want that chance to vote for who I know. I don't want an out-of-town person. Plus, I'd like to know how you're going to train a person to handle all the laws that go with the dump and all the laws that go with a road agent. Because I think what you're going to do is hire somebody and we're going to pay for them to go to school to be trained.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
I'd like to move the question, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, so we're going to go ahead and vote on this amendment to Article number 17, so you can get your voting cards out, the blue cards that you have there. The amendment reads, shall we express an advisory view that the position of the town highway agent be an appointed position as approved by the voters in the 2021 municipal election? All those in favor of this amendment to Article number 17, please raise your card. Okay, thank you. And then all those opposed to this, please raise your hand. Okay, so it looks like there's a close vote, so I'm going to go ahead and call a division. We're going to have everyone use your cards, your green cards. We're going to use ballot number A. And what we'd like to do is have you all do a written vote. If you are in favor of this amendment, check the mark yes. And if you are opposed to that amendment, please mark no. Phil Boldo and Fran Menard are going to come by with boxes that we're going to have you guys place your ballots into, and then we'll go ahead and get an accurate count of all those that are in favor and opposed.
I want to protest this vote on the fact that the law says you can't change the intent. That petitioned article is to elect.
The law states that you can't change the subject, not the intent. It's Harriet Cady versus Deerfield. Very familiar with it. You cannot change the subject.
I will go to the legislature and pull the history to show you.
I have the law right here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take the vote. Go ahead and place a yes or no on that card, and then we're going to have these folks come in, and if you can make sure that it's green ballot cards for number 8 goes in there. Thank you. Everyone make sure you have you put your ballot into the box, please. Okay, let's make sure, does everyone have their voting card in there? This last call for your voting card, and we'll make sure it's been entered. Okay? Okay, we'll just take another moment here to count them. If you guys want to take a stretch break here, and we'll just take a quick moment here to count them, and then we'll reconvene here in just a moment. Okay. Thank you for your patience as we have them counted and double checked. So the article number 17, the yeses were 39, the noes were 28. So the Article 17 amendment passes. So it now shall read, shall we express an advisory view that the position of town highway agent be an appointed position as approved by the voters in the 2021 municipal election. So that's been approved. So that will be the new verbiage for warrant article number 17. Okay, so next. Okay, so with that in mind, are there any additional comments, questions, or amendments for warrant article number 17 before we move forward? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Moderator, Kevin Vernon, McCarran Road. So certainly 25 signatures is outweighed by the probably 50 people that are in this room, maybe a few more, but that would have been significantly outweighed by the 1,200 people that are likely to turn out on March 8th. But at this point, it's all water under the bridge, and the remarks are probably out of order, so thank you for the indulgence, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Okay, seeing if there's no other further comments, we'll ask the, are you talking on this one?
I want to make a motion to reconsider another article.
Okay, so not on this one. Okay, thank you. So if there's no other further comments, we'll ask the town clerk to place this amended article on the official ballot as amended. So, thank you. Mr. Langos?
So I would like to make a motion to reconsider Article 13.
Okay, so we can go back to Article 13, please. So Article 13 reads, is there a second? Okay. Article 13 reads to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be used to purchase a utility vehicle for Deerfield Parks and Recreation. The total of $5,000 will be spent from the Parks and Recreation Revolving Fund, with the remaining amount to come from taxes. So, Mr. Langos?
So I simply want to amend the amount to read 20,000 instead of 15,000.
So your amendment is to change the dollar value from 15,000 to 20,000?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, is there a second on that? Second. So it's been probably moved for the amendment to change the dollar value from 15,000 to 20,000, Article 13. Do you have any questions? Okay, great. You can bring that up. Now we can open it for discussion. So, yes, please.
So Zach and I sit next to each other as the Board of Selectmen and NBC chair POS rep at the NBC. And he and I have been talking about this the whole time. And I almost did this during the regular discussion. I think Zach's right. 15 is woefully low. 20 is probably low, but it'll buy us something better. So I'm completely in support of this amendment.
All right, so I just need to do one procedural thing. You made a motion to reconsider and second. We need to have all in favor of that reconsideration. So if you can just raise your voting cards, all in favor of reconsideration, please raise your. Okay, all those opposed? Okay. We got 1, 2. Okay, so that passes. So thank you for the indulgence there. Okay, so the amendment number 1 is to amend the amount to $20,000. Is there additional discussions?
So I just want to note that my concern with that article alone has been that 15K will be woefully inadequate to get a sufficient vehicle that won't require excessive maintenance. Doing a quick search during the break and during the course of this meeting, $20,000 I think would afford the town a much better vehicle that will hopefully require significantly less maintenance in the long run.
Okay, thank you. Other discussions, please.
Don Wing, Nottingham Road. We're going by the recommendation of the Parks and Rec manager. $15,000 could potentially be an adequate amount. You know, we still need to look into, can we use or can we get a state repurposed vehicle or a county repurposed vehicle? I think it's, you know, the gentleman we put in charge of Parks and Rec is the guy that's given us the recommendation. So, you know, we don't know what he looked into. We can go on Google, we can go on whatever search we want to find out vehicles, but this gentleman took the time to give us a price and an amount to go by. I think we should go by his recommendation.
Thank you. Further comments, please? Other folks join us? Okay. Mr. Verbo?
Yeah, Mr. Moderator, thank you. Kevin Verbo, McCarran Road. So there was a lot of discussion at the Budget Committee around this article, and while it was supported, it certainly was heavily questioned. And I'm surprised that the persons trying to amend this article didn't try to amend it differently. So the discussion that seemed to be the most favored, though nobody made a motion to it, was to consider having the Parks and Rec Department buy a new passenger van for shuttling children around, people. And to take the existing passenger van that's, you know, a little bit aged and beat up and pull the seats out of it and use that as the utility vehicle. And I have to admit that that idea sounded pretty good, sounded robust and favorable. I'm surprised that the amendment is simply to add a meager $5,000 to this for the purpose of buying, from what I understood earlier today, the discussion, to buy a used vehicle for a wildly popular Parks and Rec department that has so many children of our community participating. To leave them in the old passenger van, to buy a used van to move things around. I'm just a little surprised. I would almost think we'd be better off at this point, as a deliberative body, to reject this amendment. And perhaps somebody else could stand up and make an amendment to change the article to buy a new passenger van for moving our children from point to point in town, and using the existing used passenger van, pull the seats out of it, and use that as the utility vehicle. And for that reason, I'll vote against the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Okay, ma'am?
Joanne Bradbury. I am in favor of the amendment. Having been looking over the last 6 months or so, from time to time via the internet to replace my 2004 jalopy, I think that the additional $5,000 will make a big difference in what you can get, and I think that's probably I feel it's the best way to go, rather than take a $15,000 amount and get something that's really going to have to be replaced in a couple of years anyway. So I am in favor of the amendment to $20,000.
Thank you. Okay, in the back?
I would like to ask the question, we bought a bus, $35,000. Turned out they couldn't get a driver for it and they sold it. Did that money that they sold it for go back into recreation, or did it go back into the town budget?
It went to recreation.
It went into recreation. So why can't that money be used to buy a vehicle instead of us re-raising all the money again?
That was multiple years ago, so it would have been, that was a year budget. So we don't have that money socked away somewhere because there was no record vehicle expendable trust fund or et cetera to put it in.
The recreation has an account of its own, and the money went into that, and as treasurer, it was over $200,000 last year.
Thank you. Next. Yes, sir.
Hi, I just wanted to emphasize that I think we should increase the amount for this vehicle to $20,000, because I've had vehicles for $15,000, and I ended up having to spend like thousands of dollars to replace the brakes and to put in a lot of other maintenance just to keep the car running. So I think it would be a good idea for the town to actually double. I'm not proposing an amendment, but I think that increasing the budget would be better in the long run for the town, because they're going to have to spend thousands of dollars, potentially at least, just to keep the car running over the years if they spend just $15,000. Thank you.
Okay. Others? Okay.
Nick Lawrence, Parks and Rec Director. My opinion was alluded to, so I figured I'd step back up here. I did talk to Zach during the break. A larger allowance for a vehicle would certainly be helpful to us. I think the original thought was just to keep our ask as low as we could go and fill the need for something to go around town in. With that said, there was also a question about the revolving fund. Revolving fund, there's a lot of misconceptions about. It's typically, that's money in, money out for programs. That's typically how that money, that allotment of money is supposed to be spent. So we try to focus that on programs. So to just dip in and purchase a vehicle is not typical of an account like that. We try not to do that. Over the years, the account has been spent down, more so that it can be used as it's designed to be used, money in, money out for the programs directly, or as directly as we can. So that's just some insight to that. I would be in favor of the amendment to up the amount to 20,000.
Thank you. Ms. Hutchinson?
Move the question, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so discussion is now ended we'll take a vote on the amendment to warrant article number 13. And so the description of the warrant article is to change. So it's going to read now Article 13, if passed, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be used to purchase a utility vehicle for Deerfield Parks and Recreation. A total of $5,000 will be spent from the Parks and Recreation Revolving Fund, with the remaining amount to come from taxes. So all those in favor of changing that dollar amount to $20,000 signify by raising your card. Thank you. Those that oppose, raise your cards. Okay, that passes. So then the new warrant article 13 will be amended. We'll ask the town clerk to update the warrant article to the $20,000 as amended. Okay, so now we're going to go back to warrant article number 18. That's our final one for today. So warrant article 18. Okay, so warrant article number 18 reads, shall we allow the operation of Keno games within the town of Deerfield, New Hampshire? This was a petition warrant article, and we'd like to invite Mr. Michael Nichols of 43 Mountain Road to discuss this. Mr. Nichols, and thank you for your service.
As stated, I'm Mike Nichols. I'm here representing Health Batchelor American Legion Post 103 here in Deerfield. We placed this petition article before Deerfield as a positive revenue stream for the Legion here in town. Keno is run and operated by the New Hampshire State Lottery Commission, and they provide all the equipment and things in order for it to operate. We just basically provide the venue. And then we also receive a portion of the proceeds from the money generated for that program. And so we were looking at it as a positive revenue stream for the American Legion.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any comments, questions, or amendments? Ms. Gregg?
I just have a quick question, if anybody could address the support that the state offers with respect to gambling issues, because Keno is, you've got alcohol and an opportunity to gamble. And from a support system of what we're looking for members of our community, I do think that it's important to have a feel for what kinds of resources are available to communities that do adopt this. Thank you.
Does anyone have any feedback on it? I don't think we have that information available. Do you, Mr. Nichols?
I do know that on their, having worked with the New Hampshire Lottery Commission, they do provide like 1-800 numbers, things like this, and supportive services to those. I don't actually know the specifics to that. However, there is a representative coming on February 14th to the town select meeting, and he would be able to speak to that much better than I could. Okay.
Yeah. So there is a public hearing at the next selectmen's meeting, which is Valentine's Day. But if you don't have a date and you want to come hang out with the Board of Selectmen and find out, it's a great opportunity.
Okay. Are there any other comments or amendments, questions for warrant article number 18? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and put this final warrant article as written onto the ballot. I'd sure like to thank everyone for coming today. Want to remind everyone that the school deliberative session is next Saturday, 9 a.m. in the school gymnasium. And hold on just a moment, please.
Yes, I'd like to take this opportunity to, first off, thank everyone for coming out today, and also to thank Don Wyman and the Fair Association for generously providing this building for us. It's really nice to be able to have him. Nice to have heat here. I was anticipating we'd have to leave the windows open, so that was definitely a pleasant surprise. And again, thank you to the Fair Association.
Okay, and I also want to thank our town emergency management director, Lenny Gregg. She has done a tremendous amount of work to make it safe for us to be here today. Let's give her a big round of applause. And one final item, there is a school building informational meeting. It's going to be on the 16th of February at, what time? At 7 p.m. at the school. So if anyone's interested in more information on the new school bond article and for the expansion, you can get that then. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next week. Thank you.